Yeah, so it's about like 3 or 4 days before Christmas, and I decided I wanted to make a Christmas special, and I'm gonna try and get it done as close to Christmas as I can, but we'll see how that turns out. So, the first level that I think actually started me getting good at creating December Vibes was actually a Christmas themed level. I mean, you can tell from the name, so I decided I wanted to go over how I created it and the process of doing so and why the level was so rushed. And then afterwards, I want to take a look at some of the Easter eggs in my levels and then go and look at some of my unfinished levels and see where they are and if I'll finish them. So, sometime right before I started December Vibes, I decided that I wanted to get better at creating. Prior to this point, I was actually really bad at GD and had mostly just been messing around with the editor making layouts. But I'd been playing more levels recently and I saw some really cool ones that I really wanted to recreate, so I decided to learn how to create. So, December Vibes actually wasn't the first product of this. I decided to copy a couple levels that I liked a lot, especially some of the dailies, and I decided to use them to create my own blog designs, and I started to notice I was making some levels that were actually kind of good. If you compare the levels I made before I started studying other levels and the ones I made after, you'll notice a clear difference. I decided to keep going, and I eventually just settled on making December Vibes, which was a very rushed project because at this point, remember, I still was only practicing block designs, and I hadn't made a full level that's decorated yet. The thing is, and I didn't know this at the time, I am actually a very slow creator, and I require a lot of inspiration to actually get going on projects. That's why I have so many unfinished levels, because I only really finish them if I actually am invested in them. So I don't actually finish my levels very often. I only release a level maybe every 2 to 6 months. And especially with something like Sonk, which took almost a year to do, which is another video on its own. At the time, a layout took me 4 days to make, and nowadays I can make a layout in 1 or 2. But at the time, I allotted only 24 days to make my level, which was a mistake, because I didn't understand that at the time that decoration is very time-consuming. So I gave myself 24 days until I had to release my level on Christmas Day. The beginning of the level actually went really smooth and it was not difficult to decorate. I had a little bit of trouble with the spike design, but I eventually settled on a Christmas tree because it is a semi-triangular shape that fits the theme really well. The snow in the foreground looks kinda ugly, but besides that I really like the first cube. The first wave is probably my favorite part in the level just because of the dynamics and how much motion is in it. It's the only part in the level that, in my opinion, still stands up to some of the levels I make today. The transition out of the wave is really cool, but it marks the end of the level actually being good because the robot part that follows is very lackluster and was very rushed. This will be a theme, as you see, because the next ship has even more rushed stuff, it has worse gameplay, and then the wave at the end is super buggy and doesn't even work on PC, so I just added a toggle orb that made it so that you would just play it as a normal wave instead of a weird cursed wave. It was super stupid and the bug fixing doesn't even work, so on PC the level is practically impossible at that point unless you are really good at wave. However, the drop segment actually looks really good because the rushness ends. It's still super simple because I was still sort of rushing the level, but in the end it worked really well, especially the duel in the background, which is hardly noticeable but looks really nice. I also think the end screen is super nice, and it was probably the last part of the level that I actually spent time on, and it was really cool. Now, if you were paying attention, you might have noticed a coherent theme there, which was the level being rushed. The consequence with only having 24 days to build a level is that I spent the first 18 days working on parts of very slowly figuring out what I was doing decorating my first level. I ended up only having 3 parts done by the end of the first 18 days, which gave me 6 days to finish the last 3 or 4 parts. I ended up spending 4 of those days fully on the level, trying to finish those 3 parts. I ended up getting the first 2 of those parts finished in 2 days because I was rushing, so I ended up getting 4 days to finish the last 2 parts, which is why they look better than the middle. All in all, the level is super rushed and nowhere near as good as my current levels, unless you're asking Beatidle, who thinks it's my best level yet. Either way, I think the level was pretty good and a pretty decent shot at decorating for someone who barely decorated before that. Overall, I'm really glad I made the effort to learn to create and make that level because without it, I wouldn't be making levels now. So, yay. Yeah, so ever since Sonk, I've actually been putting Easter eggs in all of my levels. I do this because it always is really cool when I get an Easter egg in another level, so I decided I wanted to have some in mind so that other people could do that too. You can also use Easter eggs to put things that you really like or to put little memories or things in levels. For example, I've been putting a Michigan icon in every level that I've made since Michigan's death. It's a really good way to show appreciation or to just put little memories or things in levels, and it's really cool. So I've decided to do it on pretty much every level, starting with my most recent level and then working my way back. We'll look at some of the Easter eggs and what will I find. So So I'm not going to go over every single Easter egg in all of these levels because I don't really want to ruin the fun and I want you guys to go and try and find some. What Will I Find has 3 main Easter eggs. At the beginning, when you die, the first part, there's a little bit of text that says Awooga for some reason. If you miss the first jump, there's an impossible secret way that just has a saw that kills you at the end. And there's also the bird from Celeste hidden within the ball part, which is one of my favorite games. There's also the Mishy icon, of course, hidden within the background on a cloud. What level contains much more hidden Easter eggs? There's of course also text if you die at the start, and there's a hidden Woolsey icon in the second part. There is also once again a secret way that isn't actually possible, and a couple other little hints and stuff if you jump in the wrong places. The bird appears again in the ship part right before the ball, and the Mishy icon once again is hidden within the first part on one of the wave blocks. Zelda also has a ton of Easter eggs. There's a microwave in the first part, followed by a secret path you can take. There's also a spider from the game Fancy Pants that you can kill, and he'll give you his hat for the entire rest of the level. There's also a castle wall in the background saying Tartarus was here, which was suggested by him. There's also an NES controller in the wall of one of the castles, and a bunch of other small Easter eggs hidden all around. And finally, of course, the Michigan icon is on the castle terrace in the last part. Repeat, since it's much shorter, doesn't really have many references with the exception of one appearance of the Celeste bird on a platform in the cube part. Sonk also doesn't have very many references, even though it was the level that started this. It does have a Among Us reference in text when you die in the minecart. It also has one of my favorite references I've ever put in the level, which is that if you go through a spike near the end screen will say Kinos instead of Sonk. Now I'm going to move on to some of my unfinished levels. Keep in mind, some of these levels, and actually most of them, are probably going to get finished, just not soon. Yeah, so that's about it for the Christmas special. I don't really have a lot of time to finish this, so it's not going to be too long of a video. I did once again ask everyone in my Discord server for their favorite moment this year, so yeah, I'm going to put that up on screen at the end.